Welcome to another episode of the As a Man Awaketh pot share. So, as you can see, if you're watching this on video, I've got a bit of a new setup here. I'm playing around with some things and got a new microphone, got a new camera. So, I'm still working things out. I'm not sure yet if this is exactly how I want everything, but for now, this is as best as I could make it for today. So, well, as usual, I don't really have any particular topic that I pre plan for these episodes. I just trust myself and trust Source that whatever needs to come through will come through. So, one thing though that I'd like to share right now is one of my readers on Substack recently asked me, well, recently it was really kind of a couple of months ago, asked me how I connect with my subconscious, because I had mentioned that during one of the podcasts, pot shares, or even one of the posts. I'm not really sure, but there's many ways, really. One of the ways that is the simplest, most effective, really, is using what's called the finger lock or finger testing system, and you basically this is a way by which you can tap into the intelligence of your body and really the subconscious. Some people say that it's actually tapping into your higher consciousness or your higher self, if you want to call it that. But whatever it is, there's different methods, but I've sort of developed my own in that I first drop into my heart space because the heart never lies unless it is extremely hurt and extremely wounded. So when you want to muscle test, really is another word for doing that. Muscle testing, finger testing, or finger lock muscle testing. This is how it looks basically on screen. You put your index finger and your thumb together on both hands, and then you interlock them. And this is then how you basically would test by asking questions. So you can test this out for yourself and get to know your subconscious and your body with this by just trying it out. And really, that's all it takes. So the first test, if you want to make that first test, is to put your fingers together like this, and then ask a question that you know is true. For example, my name is Daniel. So first, though, you want to drop into your heart space. So that may take some practice, of course. May take some, healing if you haven't been on the healing journey. It takes certainly a bit of a breaking of the armor around the heart to really have access to that space that is really our true self in the heart self. So, but once you're there, and if you can get there through meditation, it's just like anything. You want to repeat it as much as you can until you're fully proficient with it. And then once you're ready, you drop into your heart space, okay, and you put your fingers together, and then you simply ask a question that you would like a yes or no answer to. So that's really the kind of the only thing that you can get with the muscle testing or finger testing technique is yes or no answers. So if you want to do this with me right now, if you can, so first drop into your heart space, like I said, and then ask a question that you know the answer to would be yes. So in my case, my name is Daniel. And then you can feel by pulling out. So when you want to test the answer, you're basically pulling these two fingers out. You're trying to break the cycle. You break the chain basically of these fingers interlocked together, and that's basically how you get a yes. So when you get a yes, that means your fingers are locking. So they're not moving. Okay, you're not breaking the chain. If the answer is no, then they will come apart like this. Okay? So once again, my name is Daniel. Okay? My name is Jonathan. And you can see, right, the resistance lets go. So yes, the fingers stay together, and no, the fingers come apart. And that's really all it takes to muscle test. And that's one quick way to get in touch with your subconscious. Even though the subconscious is a vast field of possibility, certainly also a field of hidden dangers and fears and anxieties and all that kind of stuff. So, but that's one way. Okay, so that's a simple way, and there's plenty of other videos online on how to muscle test or finger test, finger lock, also some people call it. That's the way I do it. And I do this also by testing quick things such as what to feed my dogs, for example, right? So we have 4 dogs, and all of them require, not all of them, but some of them have special needs and certain dietary restrictions, and there's some of their stomachs and digestive tract. I'm not going to get into any kind of detail now, but I think I know what you mean, right? I think you know what I mean. There it is. So when we feed our dogs, we basically test, and by we I mean my wife and I, basically test what each of them requires today. So there's a supplement for intestinal support. There's probiotics. There's other liquids like salmon oil that's very good for their coat, but for those dogs that have a bit of intestinal issues, that's not always the best thing to do. So anyway, you want to find out what is working for your dog or what is not, and so sometimes things are good for them for that day, for that meal during the morning or during the evening, and sometimes it's not. So we had to really experiment back and forth and thinking about it, and researching, and ultimately we came to the conclusion, well, why don't we just test? Why don't we just muscle test what each of our dog needs per meal? And that's basically where we landed. And so whatever, when we make food for them, we muscle test, does Blue need this? Does Gem need that? And we muscle test yes or no. And then if it's a yes, for example, if there's a multiple options, for example, with the salmon oil, we test, okay, if salmon oil is a yes, then how many pumps do we need to put in the food? So that's one way. Okay, you can also do this for your own food. Like, for example, when you want to eat something or you want to test something, if it's good for you or not, that's a way to do it as well. But again, you want to sort of find yourself in this. This is not a technique that is going to just sort of quote unquote work out of the box for everyone. You have to sort of find yourself in it with this finger lock or muscle testing method. Because you really want to reduce the possibility of false positives, and that's why I always drop into my heart first. As you know, if you've been following my Substack for a while, you know that I've been on a really very deep healing journey since 2022, and with that journey came a lot of undoing of the heart pain, the pains that we store in our heart, and so the more pain I released from my heart, the more access I got to it. I remember one specific plant medicine journey with sassafras and mushrooms that basically pulled me into what seemed at the time during the night into almost a bottomless pit of pain. So much pain was coming out of me, and I was writhing on the floor and like shaking out this pain that had been stored in my cells, in my muscles, and like a lot of tension out of my muscles in the back and the hips and the legs and even the arms and the shoulders for sure came out, and that's really where it's stored, right? So when we experience pain, fear, anxiety, any kind of shock or trauma as children, and we don't have the proper channels to release it right away, and there's no comfort, no safe space that we can return to release and come back to our baseline of being good and being okay and being peaceful, then we will find the body and the subconscious will find a way to store this trauma, this shock, this pain somewhere in the body and lock it down so that we don't have to feel it anymore. And this is how we create the armor around the heart. And this is why so many people, because trauma, sorry to say, is part of your experience as a human. Everyone goes through it. There's not one human that does not go through some form of trauma. Even if your parents were still together, even if you had the most loving household, even if you grew up on a farm, right, an off-grid community or whatever the case may be, where everything's good, at least seemingly good, something always happens that causes trauma to be lodged in our system somewhere. And so the way to, and that then creates obviously patterns and habits and perceptions of reality through which we see the world. And, for example, if you've grown up in a household where there's lots of chaos, then eventually you will think that the world is chaotic. And you will live in a way and perceive the world in a way that no matter what you do or where you go or who you talk to, that is kind of the filter through which you see the world, through which you see people, through which you see your job, your career, your love life, yourself, right? So it's a program that sort of works as an overlay, kind of like a stain. If you were wearing glasses, basically, think of it like a stain on your glasses. And because you grew up with it and that's been sort of the normal thing that you just figured, hey, I guess that's how the world works. That's a stain on these glasses. And that's how you walk around the world thinking that, well, that's just the way it is, right? How many times have we heard that, especially from our parents? And so you just accept it as truth. And so you walk around accepting the truth that the world is chaotic, that people are chaotic, that your life is chaotic, and love is chaotic. You're going to have that kind of notion no matter where you go in life. And until you revisit, really is what we all have to do, revisit that initial, ideally the first event where that particular like chaos pain was programmed into us when we were first exposed to it. So revisiting that and feeling it again, allowing our body, allowing our system, allowing our subconscious to revisit that and feel that pain once again so it can finally move out of our system. That's unfortunately the only way it works that I've found. And, I've been in this space for a while and I've looked at different things. If you want the most clean, fast, and holistic and complete way to release your trauma and the patterns, the subconscious behaviors that are limiting you, that are keeping you small, then you have to revisit those painful events and allow yourself to feel them fully. And that will then, allow your body to move it out of you. Because it's just energy. At the end of the day, it's only energy. That's all it is. Now, when it comes out, of course, it's very ugly, okay? It's not going to sound, look, or feel, or even smell good in some cases if you're really, like, purging hard. But think of it like rotting food, right? So when you put food in let's say in some kind of container, Tupperware or whatever, and you put it into the fridge, okay, it's going to be there for a while and it's going to be okay for like a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. But if you leave it in there for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, in some cases, 60 years, what do you think is going to happen to that food? Right? Nothing good. It's going to turn black and moldy and ugly and toxic. And maybe if it's in a plastic container, it's even going to start eating the plastic and it's going to start maybe even become corrosive depending on what kind of food it is. Now, in the case of McDonald's, it'll hold. It'll still look the same in 60 years. But any kind of real food is going to look really ugly. So think of it like that, right? These traumas and pains that we have as children that we have to store in our body in order to not feel that pain all the time. It's like food, stored in a container, stored in your cells, locked away in your cells, in your fascia, in your muscles, and it's going to just keep rotting away there. And in some circles, in the somatic circles and the more, shall we say, the metaphysical anatomy circles, it is well known to them that cancer is the result of stored energy, of stored traumatic energy that has never allowed itself to be released. And also the location matters, right? So people, let's say, who have throat cancer, maybe, usually, what reveals itself is that during childhood, they were not allowed to express themselves fully. They were not allowed to speak. They were not allowed to talk. They were not allowed to express their needs verbally. Okay, so they were shut down on the verbal level, and other things too. But there's always a correlation between the energetic and the physical expression of a disease. So, and that's becoming more and more mainstream now. There's lots of people writing about it and talking about it. There's a book called Metaphysical Anatomy. I forgot the author's name, but she basically wrote a whole, like, really thick book about most common diseases and their locations, obviously, and then the subconscious, traumatic cause of that, usually. And so, and then she also gives some examples and practices on how to start releasing that trapped energy from your system. So, but again, personally, I believe that plant medicine, psychedelic plant medicine, is one of the best, fastest, and most complete ways to release these trapped energies. And it's of course not for everyone. And if you're super sensitive, for example, I know that there are a lot of people that are sensitive to these kinds of things, then it may not be good for you, right? So you just have to experiment and see what works for you. Now, one last thing I want to say is that you really got to trust yourself. And that's kind of a strange thing to say. If you're on the awakening journey, you know that everything that you thought was real, everything that you thought was the world and the truth about our world is basically a lie. And so once that reality that has been so carefully and systematically programmed into you starts to shatter, then what do you have left? What do you have left to stand on? Because as the awakening continues and your reality crumbles and your belief systems crumble, what do you have left? Well, the only thing that there is, really, and that is eternal love, infinite love. Some people call it God. Some people call it source, universe, whatever you want to call it. But that's really the only thing that underlies everything. Eternal, infinite love. And so as you continue on your awakening journey, and you don't know where to stand when yet another thing in reality turns out to be complete lie and false, or a deception yet again, return to infinite love. Just know that it is there, carrying all that is, carrying consciousness. It is the basis for all of consciousness. And even if you can't feel it, right? Of course, most people feel love in their heart. And the more pain you release from your system, from your heart, the more you're going to feel that naturally every single day. So return to love, return to infinite love. And it's really difficult to explain that in words. And you may consciously understand that, but unless you actually have felt infinite love in yourself and in every fiber of your being, you really can't talk about it. I can talk about it all day. I can make a million podcasts, episodes about it. But at the end of the day, if you've never really felt it yourself, it's not going to matter. It's not going to resonate. So I had the privilege and the honor of feeling that once during a plant medicine journey. And it basically showed me that all is well. You really don't have to worry about anything, because ultimately everything is infinite love. That's where we all come from. That's who we are. That's the underlying truth of all realities, of all dimensions. Without this infinite love, there would be nothing. Nothing. Not you, not me, not this camera, not this microphone, not this pot chair, nothing. So I hope this lands for you. I hope this is helpful in some way. Let me know in the comments or wherever you find this pot chair how that lands. And anyway, I hope to make these episodes now every week, now that I have a much easier setup where I can just pop in and create a show. And so hopefully I'll see you in the next episode next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Much love.